There's no reason why that couldn't be your story.
You don't have an expiration date.
Ooh, I love that.
The actual pages. Like, that's all that matters at the end of the day.
This is the Authors and Agents podcast. Kimberly, I'm so excited to have you for the third time on the podcast. Last time we talked was at the end of 2020, so I know that you've had a lot more experience and different things going on, so I'm excited to pick your brain a little bit. I'd love to start off by asking you what really excites you about being a literary agent right now, 2024.
Readers love print books now, and that's new. I think it's for a really long time after Kindle came out, everything was very ebook based. And then over the years, like audio became such a huge part of it. And now like print books are like here, and I hope it's here to stay. And it's not just like one print book, like there's special edition,
Yes.
there's just like collector's items, different territories. So I think it's just a really fun time to be working on books right now.
I was just going to say, when you mentioned that, I was like, I can think of the many different covers of the same print book that I have. I love, especially with some of those authors that I know you represent who were indie at one point and now their books are being republished. How exciting to have like a different special cover. So exciting.
Yeah, it's just a really interesting time. I feel like it's taken a really long time for publishers and industry professionals to come around to a different way of publishing books. And I feel like people are a lot more open minded. I feel like people are thinking outside the box, whereas a few years ago, I don't think that would have happened. So it's very exciting.
It's super exciting. I love it. So to get into some query questions, because those are always at the top of people's minds. So what are some of the best queries that you've read that are, like stick in your mind? What do those have in common?
You can tell the voice right away. I think I'm going to criticize the query process, but I'm also going to say I'm guilty of it too. So let's just because I don't really know another way. So usually with a query, we ask for like the first 3 chapters or the first 50 pages or whatever an agent asks for, which is all standard. The problem sometimes I think with that is I think the beginning is the hardest part of a book for authors, especially newer authors,
Definitely.
to really nail.
Mhm.
And I think it's almost like you're being judged on your first day of school rather than your last day of school, right?
Yeah.
So, and I have that too. If you look at like I ask for the first 3 chapters, so it's really interesting. So I think so for me, it's less about like content and plot and more about the writing, the voice. Am I engaged? And that's usually what sticks with me. I also really like when the pitch, and it doesn't have to be a pithy one-liner. I don't need that, but like a short summary of what the book about intrigues me.
Yeah. When
it
you
doesn't
can
feel. Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead. You finish.
I was gonna say it doesn't feel like a kitchen sink of things happening.
Yes. When you can nail that, like, not one liner, 3 liner, whatever it is, right? When you can nail your elevator pitch about it, that is so exciting.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's what stands out to me in a query nowadays.
I love it. So, what would your like top query no be?
Don't shorten the person's name. We've talked about that before, but I'll give you more. I'll give you a couple more that I haven't said before. So let's do that. Oh, what's really interesting, and I don't know if this is a no. I think it's just more a cautionary tale.
Okay.
Comparing your book to like one of the biggest books out there. Like for example, if you're writing a romantasy and you compare your book to Fourth Wing, it's a little dicey. Let's not do that. Or like I don't. Or you're writing a literary novel and you're comparing it to like Where the Crawdads Sing, like this, and you're like, of course everyone's gonna compare the books. They're like the biggest book out there. So I feel like that can potentially. I'm not saying it's wrong. That's why I say it's cautionary. It's not a no-no. It cause slight eye roll, maybe. A kind of like, okay, of course you're comparing it to Fourth Wing. Everyone's comparing it to Fourth Wing, right? I wanna compare my book to
Right,
Fourth Wing,
right,
right?
right.
Um, so that would just be a cautionary tale. Just be a little cautious about doing that.
I think that's a really good like little warning tag, right? Because yeah, you compare it to something that's huge that everybody knows really well, and then what if it's not that great of a comparison to what your book actually is? You could be then just kind of shooting yourself in the foot there.
Exactly. I agree.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. And yeah, don't shorten names. If you're not like on a buddy buddy basis with an
Please
agent,
don't.
just write
Please
their full
don't.
name.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
What's so funny is people do that in like everyday life. My husband's name is Daniel, and everyone calls him Dan. He'll introduce
I
himself as
would
Daniel, and I'm like, "What? Why are you doing that?"
I don't understand that because there's a reason. I don't
Yeah,
know why people do that. So the next person you have on your podcast that has a show and likes prefers to be, ask them because not in a judgmental way,
right. But
but
just
in
like
a
tell us. Yeah,
to understand that
yeah.
side of it because I don't understand that
I
part as
don't
well.
either. I don't either. I'm just like, that's not his name. That's not what he told you. Oh boy. Well, what would your top tips be for querying authors right now? They're deep in the trenches. Maybe they're a little downtrodden.
Okay. I promise I'm going to answer your question. I'm just going to I'll take a little bit. I'll take a
It's
detour
fine.
to get there.
That's good.
The market's really weird right now. It's a really weird market. And when I say market, I mean, I'm not necessarily talking about what readers are buying at bookstores. I'm more talking about what publishers are buying
Right.
from agents. Um, it's hard. Like I actually like it's a tough. I think it's a lot harder for debuts lately. I think it's a lot harder for maybe like an author that maybe was previously published that is looking for something like to renew like something different or something like
Right.
with a new agent. I think it's just a little hard just because there's certain things that are working really well, but because they've been working really well for the last like 2 to 3 years, it's either feels a little saturated.
Yeah.
So then you're like, okay, I've heard this book before. I've heard of this story before. I
Right.
feel like that we were there with psychological thrillers for like years after Girl on a Train came
Yeah.
out, right?
Yeah.
And then, but I also don't want to be discouraging. Um, I think at the end of the day, agents are really looking for talented writers. So I'm actually not, which might be different than what I might have said in previous talks with you, but I'm actually not as so much as looking for a really fantastic story. I'm actually looking for a really fantastic writer.
Right. Because there's potential there.
Because I always say, and my rule of thumb is always like, plot can always change, writing cannot. Like
Yeah.
writing, like the way you write cannot. Like no one can teach that, no one can help. You write the way you write. And so I really look at the writing and what thoughts, what a, an author can convey on a page, how they make me feel, if there's talent there, because I feel like as we've seen since the last time I talked to you, a lot has changed, and
Yeah.
that's just publishing. A lot changes every time, every day, every month, every year. So, I personally just want to be surrounded by talented writers.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. It's hard to not get discouraged, right? And I think like I remember
Yeah.
in 2020, was it 2020? Yeah, that was the year my first son was born. I got very close to being signed by an agent with like a YA murder mystery sort of thing. But it was right at that
Fun.
time. But it was right at that time where there was like so many of them out, right? So it was that same sort of problem where it was like, oh, this is kind of saturated, where this story feels very similar to a bunch of different things we've read, which was like, but I've been working on it for 5 years, you
I
know?
know, I know. It's so discouraging. I give authors a lot of credit for what they do and how they put themselves out there because I don't know if I could do that
It's
necessarily.
definitely difficult. The best is when you get a query like a year down the road, like a query rejection, and you're like, "Oh man, I sent that to you forever ago." Like, But but you've moved on at that point, and then that's when it doesn't hurt as bad. When you're like, oh, okay, no worries, I've moved on. So I'd love to know, what's a big misconception that people have about what you do as a literary agent?
I read books all the time.
Yeah.
I
You're just
really
sitting
don't.
there. You're just
I
sitting there reading
wish.
constantly.
I wish. That would be the dream job, right? Just reading books. I don't, to be fair to editors, editors don't read books all the time.
Yeah.
No one just sits around reading books all the time in publishing. Just let's just put that out there. So my job is mainly emails,
Mm.
communication, problem solving,
Yeah.
managing people. So,
What
yeah.
I was gonna say, like, what percentage of your time do you think you spend actually looking at queries versus everything else that you do?
Okay, so unfair question for me. So don't, everyone listening, do not take my answer to
For
apply to,
everybody. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I also own my own agency, so which is
Right.
like an added level of duty than like just being an agent.
Correct.
But I will say, looking back at when I was just an agent, I'd like to say that I looked at queries at least once a day. I don't know how much time I necessarily spent on them, but I know when I was looking to build my list, I did look at it like daily. Um, Now I have people that look at my queries and raise things to my attention.
Yeah.
I don't live in my query inbox anymore. I just don't have the time to. So when my team flags stories for me to look at, that's when I look at it.
Okay. Do you
Yeah.
do you miss it at all, living in your query inbox, or are you like glad that someone else?
Sometimes. No,
Sometimes?
I mean, sometimes I really do. There was something nice about like opening up an email and being like, and what story am I going to get today? There's something
Yeah.
really nice and fun about it. I just don't have that time anymore, unfortunately. Every once in a while I'll do it, but for the most part I get usually a summary sheet
Mm.
of the queries that come in, and I kind of look at them and kind of we have discussions about it and then go from there.
I like it. I mean, I've definitely know that the bigger agents, different, people in your position have people who kind of m- middleman that for you. Because
Filter
I mean,
through. We'll say
yeah,
filter through.
filter through, because you probably get so many each
We
day.
do. We do. So it's just about like weeding through, and but no, I get they're really in tune to what they
Oh,
know I
good.
like, what I'm looking for, and even things that they're unsure of, they'll put it on the list, and I kind of go through them. So it's not that, it's just I'm not opening that email, but I'm still seeing them.
Yeah. Well, what's the hardest part of your job?
Okay, so my favorite, I feel like I never answer you directly, Rose, and I'm really sorry.
It's
I feel
okay.
like it's always like I always clarify.
It's all
Okay,
right.
so my favorite part of my job, I am going to answer that. But my favorite part is in working with the authors.
Yeah.
One of the hardest parts of my job is working with very different authors that have different personalities and different needs.
Mm,
And I'm not saying it's hard as in challenging to do that. It is sometimes draining, and
mm,
it is sometimes exhausting, not because the authors are exhausting, but just because I have to like put on different hats.
yeah.
Like sometimes I wear the therapist hat, sometimes I wear the friend hat,
Yeah.
sometimes I wear the uh editor, like the editorial hat, sometimes I wear the strategist or the business minded hat. So it really just kind of does, and I constantly throughout the day, depending on who I'm talking to, I have to switch that hat. And
Yeah.
so it almost, yeah, so okay, and I hope I'm making it clear that it's not the authors
Of
that are
course.
exhausting. It's
Yeah.
just the different roles that I have to play for each author given the situation.
Oh, I mean, that does sound exhausting. Just that you're offering the support that you can in the very best way, because you care about the relationship and what's going on. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think we can all relate to that in different aspects of our life, right? Like that can be exhausting, especially when you've got people who need very different things to keep that straight in your head, to remember all of that, and how they best, need it. Maybe one therapist tap for one author is different than the therapist tap for another
Yes,
author,
this
right?
is very true. And also just knowing how to navigate these difficult conversations and
Yeah.
things like that. So I think that is, mm, I think that is the most challenging for me personally.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be very exhausting. How many people, how big is your list right now, like averagely?
Okay, so in the agency, I think we have 120 authors.
That's wonderful.
I oversee most of them.
That's awesome. I mean, that sounds exhausting. That's a lot
Yeah,
to
it is.
to
It
have
is.
your hand in. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but I at the same time I really enjoy it because I get to do something different every day. Like what every day is never the same.
Yeah.
Different personalities, different people, never bored.
I would hope
So
not.
that is the icing on the cake.
Oh, I love it. That's so exciting. So, I want to talk a little bit about social media because I feel like even more now in 2024 than in 2020, like social media is such a vehicle for authors to find new readers, but it also is so difficult, right? Like to manage that and writing and all the other things we have to do in our daily life. So, how do you think an author can set themselves up for success on social media? Or if they have to, what's your thoughts on that?
I think they need to first determine what their comfort level is. Not what they're supposed to be doing, not what other authors are doing, not what they think they should do. It's like, what do they like doing and how comfortable do they feel showing? Because I think one of the biggest things is for people is the idea of being authentic
Hmm.
and not forcing something or being fake. So I think they just need to be on authors need to be honest with themselves and what their level of comfort is and staying true to that.
I think that's really good advice. Yeah. We see people who are on there all the time and feel like look so authentic and natural doing it. I can think of a few authors who just like, oh, I love everything they do. And but other authors prefer to not keep their face on social media and all those things. And
Yeah,
that's totally okay.
it is. You can definitely be successful without having being public about who you are.
Yeah, I love it. My next question. So, you have read the query, the book. You're excited about this manuscript that you have and talking with the author. I've asked you this before, but maybe you'll have different, some
Okay.
different questions based on the past few years. But what questions do you think an author should be asking you on that call, or an agent on that call?
What's their communication style? How do they best like to communicate? The author should actually know the answer to this question themselves as well.
Okay.
So like the author should be like, I am really bad on video. If an author is like, I don't like video calls, I don't want to do them, I prefer emails, or I prefer talking on the phone. I think an author needs to know what their comfort level is, and then find an agent that can match that comfortably as well, because you definitely want to be um, feel comfortable communicating. So I think communication is the key to an agent author relationship. And forgive me, Rose, I don't remember what I said on previous podcast. My other time, two times
That's
you asked
okay.
me this, so I
That's okay.
apologize if I'm repeating it. I'm just trying to think of very authentic questions.
I love it.
Another one would be I think it's fair to ask an agent what makes them stand out amongst other agents. Like what is,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying this is not it's not asking an agent to like brag or bring out all their accolades, just more of like um
Like,
I'm
why
trying
are
to
they
think of
the
the best way.
like why are they the right agent for that book? Like,
Yeah,
what can they
yeah.
add to it, right?
Yeah. And I feel like you can ask this question even if you only have one author call, like one agent call. Like
Yeah.
you don't have to have multiple. I feel like it's a good question to ask because I feel like an agent should have an answer on
Yeah.
why they think that and it might not be what the author wants to hear, but I still think that it's a really good information to have and to gather. I think also another good question would be, again, this is a good answer will depend on what an author wants. A lot of these questions are all, I really do think the author should think about what their answer, what for them, what the answer would be, to just make sure it matches what an agent is. But what is the I like what's the trajectory? Are you meaning the agent in this with me for this book, or are you in this for, like, what if this
Right.
book doesn't sell? Like, what happens if this book doesn't sell and I want to write another book? Are you going to be just as invested? Is that something you're going to have to wait and see? Do you want me? Do you want my book? And there is no wrong answer to that. I mean, everything's like, for example, if you're writing a nonfiction book, it might be about the book.
Yeah.
So, to be fair, so I don't want that to make it sound like agents that say it's about the book are bad agents, because that's
No.
not it. It's situational, and it also depends on what the author. I know authors who wrote a book, wrote a great book, and never wanted to write again, and
Yeah.
that's okay too. So, I think just, asking the author, I mean, you obviously can't say, like, what do you see for me in 5 years, but kind of a little along the lines of, like, what are we in this together?
Yeah, which I think I love your notion too that like the author should be answering these questions first for themselves, right? So then they can
I,
know exactly what they want. I mean, I think when you go into querying and you're really pursuing this, you got to think about it from a business perspective, right? Which can be hard as a creative to then switch into that business mode, but yeah, I think it's so good to remember that it's the start of a business relationship. And you want it to be the best business relationship because it's like the person who's going to get through all the hurdles with you, right? And
mm,
yeah, understanding if that's as invested as they are too.
agreed. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm trying to
wonderful.
think if there's another question I think that an author should ask. Try to think if there's been author calls I've had that a question they asked a question I was really like, oh, that's a good question. Um, okay, depending on the size of the agency, um, I was asked this and I thought it was actually a really good question. Like, do you find there's a benefit to being a small
Mm,
boutique agency versus with a big named talent agency like CAA or WME,
right.
and again, I think it depends on which one they're from. I think asking about the other, I think it's really interesting, not so much to convince you as the author, but more just to hear their perspective on how they view agenting as a whole, and like
Right.
and their agency too.
Yeah, because there's no doubt pros and cons to both, right?
There
Both
are, there
options.
are, yeah,
Yeah, and you want to hear what your agent is that kind of their like their perspective, their confidence level maybe too in what they have to offer, whether they're
yeah.
from one or the other.
And I have one last question, and I
Yes.
don't think I said this before, so this one will be new for you. Um, how many people will be working on my book
Oh, that's a good
within the
one.
agency? Will I always be talking to your assistant? Will I always be talking to you? Are there other, again, no wrong answers, but I
Yeah.
think just setting that expectation level is really good to know.
Oh, that's very good to know. Yeah, because if they expect to be talking to you the whole entire time, but then end up working only with your assistant, that could be feel like a disconnect, right?
You almost just want, yes, I agree. You almost just want to know, like what do I expect? Say I sign right now, I sign with you. What should I expect? How's it
Yeah.
gonna go? And
Yeah.
it's more just to go in with full transparency.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me the next steps. Tell me what walk this through with me. What is it going to be like?
Yeah.
I love that. I definitely think it's important for authors to, brainstorm what they want to ask beforehand too because you want to interview the agent as much as the agent is interviewing you.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually love calls when they are interviewing me. It's
Yeah.
actually the best. Yeah, I actually really enjoy them when they
Well,
do that.
I imagine too, you're thinking in your head as they're interviewing you, like, okay, they're really invested. They're taking this super seriously. They're not just like, oh my gosh, an agent. I'm going to sign with whoever first calls me,
And I
right?
and I actually think it foreshadows how this person, well, again from the agent side, how this author is going to be like to work with in the
Yeah.
future based on the types of questions they ask me,
Yeah. I
and like
imagine
what,
so.
like the way they process things, the way they think about things, that I find fascinating.
Mm, I love it. Well, I've got just a couple questions left. So I'd love to know what you are looking forward to representing next. Like, what are you really hoping pops into your query inbox?
Rose, I've never, I think I've said this on past ones and I still have yet to find it. I want a, I want like a modernized Agatha Christie. I want a Clue.
Oh,
I
I
want a
love it.
Clue. I
Yes.
do a Knives Out.
Oh,
It can be a little campy. I'm okay with camp.
I love camp.
Um, I just, it's just such a fun book, and many have been across my desk, and it's yet to find one. I'd also really like, what would I like? I love all books in boarding schools. I love
Oh,
boarding
yeah.
school books,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't like. I think I'd want them to be. I'm trying to categorize it so it's not so broad. I just love anything set in a boarding school. Um, but I don't do YA, so maybe like the new adult, and it doesn't have to be a romance at all. Um, and it can be a little upmarket too. I'm okay with
Okay.
that. I just love anything set in a boarding school. I'm very fascinated with boarding schools.
I don't think I would ever want to be in a boarding school, but I love
I
reading
would love
books.
it. See,
Really?
I would love it. I like I at least once a month I say to my father, I'm like, Dad, why didn't you ever send me to a boarding school? You know what he said to me? He's like, Kimberly, you never would have went. And I'm like, yes, I would have. He's like, at 14, you would have never went to a boarding school, which he's probably right in hindsight,
Probably.
though. Although if I was way older when Harry Potter came out, so like, but if Harry Potter came out when I was 12,
You probably would have then
shit,
gone to a boarding
I
school.
probably would have went to boarding school. Yeah.
Yeah, you would have been like, sign me up.
Yeah.
There's going to be wizards there.
Yes. And then let me see if there's one other because I like doing things in threes. Um,
Is your romance list pretty full right now? Because you've got some killer
it's not so
romance
much. It's
clients.
not so much. Thank you. It's not so much that it's full. I actually would love a speculative romance,
Okay.
like like Time Traveler's Wife.
Oh yeah.
I actually really like time travel.
Time travel is the best.
I think time travel books are the best, but they're so hard. I've read so many like submissions and it just never can get it. So, but I'll put it out there. But my romance, I don't think there's ever can be too much romance, but I will say is because there's a huge saturation. There's a lot of things that I would probably just pass on. It really needs to stand out.
Yeah. For me, back on the time travel, I love time loop books. Time loop is like, oh, I
Oh
live for
yeah.
that. I live for it.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm okay if it goes a little sci-fi. I don't mind
Yeah. Yeah.
little.
Yeah.
But I don't really need an explanation.
Oh,
Like,
me
I feel
neither.
like Back to the Future was probably one of the best. I feel like Back to the Future I bet people are going to hear this and be like, no, it didn't. So please don't come at me. But in my opinion, I feel like Back to the Future set the standard for how time travel should be,
Yeah.
like viewed and looked at, like going back in time and seeing your parents and what if that
Right.
changes, or like the whole thing. So but I would love a Back to the Future, like a time, like almost like a fun Back to the Future story like that. It doesn't have to be a romance. I'll
Just
take a
something.
romance.
Yeah.
Time travel's fun.
Time travel is so fun. Anything with that. When it can be done so well, and I've read some good
Hmm.
like contemporary time back in time, like the second chance year, stuff like that I love where it's done really well.
I agree.
Exciting. Well, I hope you get some of that in your
I
inbox.
know. One day
One
I'll
day
get it. It's
you
on
will
my
get
wish
your
list.
modern Agatha Christie and it will be a good day.
Oh, I can't wait. I
That'll
can't
be
wait.
amazing. Well, my last question for you, I'd love to know what your favorite book is right now. Not all time, just something you've read recently that you really enjoyed and want to share with people.
Can I cheat and look at? Oh, I know. I actually know the answer.
Okay.
The Quiet Tenant.
Ooh.
Oh God, I'm gonna butcher the author's name. I'm looking at my audio list because I listened to it. Um, oh, what is the person's name? Okay, Clements. Oh, I apologize. I am gonna butcher her name or their name. I don't know, and I'm not even gonna try. But it's The Quiet Tenant. It was so interesting in that I'm not spoiling it. It is a point of view of three women, one teenager, one woman who is being held captive,
Ooh.
and the girlfriend of. So there's a man, he has a teenage daughter, he's holding a woman
In his basement, probably,
captive.
right? Yep. Oh,
No,
no, not in
no,
his basement.
not in his basement. And the woman he's dating. And it's from
Ooh,
those three POVs.
I
And
love
it's
that.
so fast. Okay, so what I loved about this book is there were no crazy twists. It was not like
Huh.
one of those twisty thriller things, but it was the way this author chose to tell basically a serial killer story from the point of view of the women in his life.
That's
It was
creative.
it was so engaging. And I think the other just found a really interesting entry point to tell a story that has been told before
Yeah.
in a very different way. So
Oh,
I definitely recommend that book. I gave it to my best friend for Christmas. I recommended it to one of my authors. It was just I just really enjoyed it. It just felt fresh.
oh, I love that. That especially with something like that kind of story, but to feel so fresh, that's such a creative perspective. I'm gonna have to read that because I love
Oh,
books
it's
like
good. And
that.
the audio was good too. The audio was
Okay.
good too. And
Okay.
I will say, you never get in his head. So you never, never.
So you're just
And
left thinking about it. Oh, I love that.
it's so good. It was really good. It was really good.
Oh, I love it. I'm definitely
And she's
adding
not
that.
in a basement, and she's not in like a shed or anything like that. You need to, yeah.
Interesting. Okay, well now I have to read it to find out where she's being held captive.
Yes, you do. Yes, you
Oh my
do.
goodness. Well, Kimberly, thank you so much for chatting with me again and
Thank you
sharing.
for having me. I really
Yes.
appreciate it.
It's so fun and I'm so excited to continue to see what you do and cheer all of your authors on from the sideline.